hello everyone. Today I will be discussing about adaptive specific host defense in chapter 18. I'm Jericho Parami, together with Jasper Sabano. But today I'll be presenting the second part of our topic, which is the part B and C, which is composed of lymphocytes and as well as vaccines. So this is the chapter outline of our topic, which is the specific adaptive immunity, the major histocompatibility complexes and antigen presenting cells, and as well as the lymphocytes and cellular immunity, and B lymphocytes and humoral immunity, etc. vaccines. So today we'll be delving on the three topics, which is the T lymphocytes and the B lymphocytes and vaccines. I believe that my partner is also done presenting the first and second topic. So today we'll be delving into one of the most sophisticated components of the immune system, which is the T lymphocytes and their pivotal role in cellular immunity. Unlike humoral immunity, which involves antibody production, cellular immunity is mediated by T cells, which directly interact with infected or abnormal cells. Understanding their function is crucial for immunology, disease treatment, and medical advancements such as vaccines and immunotherapies. Now, T lymphocytes, as defined, are a type of white blood cells crucial for adaptive immunity. They mature in the thymus and play key roles in immune response. And just like I said, unlike B cells, T cells do not produce antibodies but recognize infected cells directly. It means po that T lymphocytes or T cells are a subset of white blood cells that develop into the rhymus and are essential for adaptive immunity. Um, this means that T cells exert their effect by recognizing and eliminating infected or malignant cells. They achieve this through a highly specialized receptor known as the T cell receptor, which allow them to detect antigens presented by other cells. And as well as T cells are indispensable in immune responses and maintaining immune surveillance. Now, there are types of T cells, and does anyone familiar with T cells? So, these are the type of T cells. We have the helper T cells, the cytotoxic cells, regulatory T cells, memory T cells. So, helper T cells activate other immune cells, and the cytotic T cells destroy infected and cancer cells, while the regulatory T cells suppress excessive immune responses. The memory T cells naman provide long-term immunity. So we'll know the function of different types of T cells later on. So T cell activation is T cell originate from what we call hematopoietic stem cells in the bone marrow, but migrate to the thymus for maturation. And nakita natin sa PowerPoint na T cells require antigen presentation by antigen presenting cells like dendritic cells. Major histocompatibility complex or MHC molecules present antigen to T cells. And we also have CD4 plus T cells recognize MHC2 while CD8 plus T cells recognize MHC1. There are different mechanisms involved. We have two critical call this selection mechanisms. You have the positive selection and the negative selection. When we talk about positive selection, it ensures that developing T cells can recognize self-major histocompatibility complex, or what we call the MHC molecules, which are necessary for antigen presentation. When we talk about negative selection, on the other hand, it eliminates autoreactive T cells that recognize self-antigens too strongly. It prevents autoimmune diseases. And only about 2% of the developing T cells survive this rigorous selection process and are released into circulation as naive cells, ready to encounter foreign antigens. So, di ba sinabi ko kanina, meron tayong different type of T cells. Ngayon, malalaman natin yung functions silang apat. So we have the helper T cells. It releases cytokinase to boost immune response. Si helper T cells po or the CD4 T cells are cells that act as immune response regulators. Upon activation, they actually release cytokines that stimulate B cells and the macrophages and the immune system. I mean, macrophages. And the second one is cytotic T cells. Release perforin and granzymes to kill infected cells. The CD8 T cells are actually cells that are primary executors of cellular immunity, directly attacking and destroying virus-infected, cancerous, or foreign cells through the release of perforins and granzymes. Now, the third one is we have the regulatory memory T cells. The memory T cells provide faster immune response to um, upon reinfection. So this memory T cells po ay sila po yung nag-provide ng immunological memory. They will ensure that a faster and more robust response upon re-exposure to the same antigen. So pag ma-expose tayo sa same antigen na nagkasakit tayo, they will be the one, memory T cells are the one, parang para maiwasan natin yung another antigen. Now, the last one is regulatory T cells. Regulatory T cells help prevent autoimmune diseases. These cells play a crucial role in maintaining immune homeostasis by suppressing excessive immune responses and preventing autoimmunity. Now, we'll know about the role of T cells in immunity. What are the role of T cells? T cells actually help fight infections, eliminate cancer cells, and prevent autoimmune diseases. Their activation is essential for effective vaccination and long-term immunity. Dysfunctions in T cells can lead to immunodeficiency or autoimmunity. For a T cell to be activated, it must it must recognize an antigen presented by an antigen presenting cell or the APC. Siyempre, di ba? Such as dendritic cell, macrophage, or B cell. This antigen must be processed and displayed via MHC molecules. Ano yung MHC molecules natin? We have the MHC class 1. It presents to CD8 cytotic T cells as well as the MHC class 2 presents CD4 helper T cells. See, MHC class 1, it leads to a direct destruction of infected cells, while the MHC class 2, it will coordinate immune responses through cytokine secretion. T cell activation requires secondary co-stimulatory signal, ensuring that immune responses are precisely regulated and preventing unwanted activation. And once they are activated, cytotic cells induce a what we call apoptosis in infected or cancer cells using, of course, the perforins, which create pores in target cell membranes and granzymes. Si granzymes po ang yung nag-trigger ng cell death pathways. Then si helper T cells naman, on the other hand, releases cytokines such as the interleukin or the IL-2 and interferon gamma or the IFN gamma, which enhance the activity of other immune cells including macrophages and B cells. Actually, this is coordinated response to ensure that an effective elimination of pathogens while maintaining immune balance is done. The adaptive immune response system, on the other hand, is distinguished by its specificity and memory. Memory T cells, again, generated after initial infection. It provide a long-lasting immunity, and upon reinfection, they mount a rapid and amplified response, forming the basis of vaccine-induced immunity. Siyempre po, if magagawa po tayo ng vaccine, there should be a vaccine-induced immunity or there should be a memory T cells para mas effective yung vaccine na gagawin natin. For example, vaccines work by stimulating memory T and B cell production, equipping the body with an efficient immune response against future infections. So makita natin na yung paggawa ng vaccine is also helpful talaga yung T cells. Dysfunction and T-cell immunity can lead to severe clinical consequences. These are yung, di ba, meron tayong tinatawag na role of T-cells. There are actually dysfunction will happen if there would be um, dysfunction in the T-cell immunity. Some of it is the immunodeficiencies. Conditions such as HIV/AIDS result in CD4 T cell depletion, weakening the immune defenses against infections. These are just one example natin is yung HIV/AIDS when it comes to immunodeficiencies. Autoimmune diseases, when T cells fail to distinguish self from non-self, they attack the body's own tissues, leading to diseases like um, arthritis and multiple sclerosis. So these are into immune diseases. We have the last one, which is I have another example, the transplant rejection. Transplant is very popular around the world now. T cells recognize transplanted organs of foreign organs, initiating immune rejection. Actually, now immunosuppressive therapies are often required to prevent graft rejections. That's why transplanting is actually another they have a crucial um, consequences and as well as they should be done by professionals. Diba? So in summary, the T lymphocytes are fundamental to cellular immunity, providing targeted and long-lasting defense mechanisms against infections, malignancies, and other immune challenges. It means that their ability to recognize specific antigens, mediate cytotoxic responses, and regulate immune functions makes them indispensable in both health and diseases. Continued research on T cells is driving advancement in immunotherapy, vaccine development, and the treatment of autoimmune disorders. So we've now known um, the type of T cells and as well as the definition of T cells, the T lymphocytes, and as well as its role in immunity. So now let's know about the vaccines. So at this juncture, we're going to discuss a crucial topic in public health, which is vaccines. I think most of you are familiar with vaccines, especially on the time that we during in our house and especially yung pandemic, di ba? So marami tayong alam na when it comes to vaccines. What are some vaccines that you know? We have the COVID-19 vaccine, as well as the vaccine for anti-rabies and vaccine for polio, and as well as for pneumonia. Diba? There's a lot of vaccinations. Vaccination has been one of the most effective ways to prevent infectious diseases, saving millions of lives worldwide. In this presentation, we'll explore how vaccines work, the different types of immunity, and the various classes of vaccines available. So, our learning objectives for this day is that you will be able to compare various kinds of artificial immunity, differentiate between variolation and vaccination, describe different types of vaccines, and explain their advantages and disadvantages. So what are vaccines? I think yun nga, sabi ko kanina, is most of us are very familiar with vaccines. I'm sorry for that. Yan. Vaccines are biological preparations that stimulate the immune system to recognize and combat pathogens. Vaccination, by definition, and our PowerPoint, vaccination is a form of artificial immunity. It stimulates adaptive immune defenses, triggering memory cell production, and this enables a strong secondary response to pathogens without prior infection. The vaccines, they provide immunity by imitating the infection or an infection, prompting the body to produce memory cells sorry, that can respond to future exposures to the actual disease. So we have classifications of adaptive immunity. So that is our these are active immunity, passive immunity can be acquired much. Yeah, we have two types. We have the active and the passive immunity. Our immune system can be classified in different types. Sabi ko kanina, the active and the passive. Let's break down these two. The active immunity is when our own immune system is stimulated to produce a response. And this can be natural active immunity. Yun na, sa active immunity, it can be natural and artificial. So natural na active immunity develop after natural exposure to a pathogen such as recovering from chicken pox. So ayun, di ba pag nagkaroon tayo ng chicken pox is hindi na tayo magkakaroon ng chicken pox. So that's why if hindi ka pa nagkakaroon ng chicken pox, malulakot ka talaga na baka magkakaroon ako. So that's natural active immunity, no? So, artificial active immunity developed through vaccines. Yung kanina sabi natin, natural immunity, nagkaka-immune tayo sa isang sakit naturally. Like for example, the chicken pox. Hindi na tayo magkakaroon ng chicken pox on the future kasi nga nagka-chicken pox tayo. That's naturally happen. And then yung artificial naman, it's through the use of a vaccine. So like for example, nagpa-vaccine ka for polio, hindi ka na magkaka-polio kasi nagka-vaccine ka na. Okay? So, immune ka na sa sakit na yon. And then we have passive immunity is when antibodies are transferred from another source. We also have two types. We have the natural, the artificial as well. The natural passive immunity is when antibodies pass from a mother to her child through the placenta or breast milk. Like for example, natural passive immunity is when, yeah, yung sabi ko rin na, when its mother, from mother to her child through the placenta or breast milk. Di ba, nagkakaroon din ng sakit, naturally, yung bata, like for example, HIV AIDS, nagkakaroon siya ng HIV. It's because it's from his mother, from their mother. No? Kung nasa womb pa sila, nagkakaroon din po ang bata ng HIV AIDS. We have the artificial passive immunity. Antibodies transferred through medical treatments such as receiving an antibody injection for rabies. So ayun, yung antibodies na yung artificial is for example nga yung sa rabies. Okay? Okay, now we've talked about immunity, no? So let's define one of the what they call this terms when it comes to immunity. We have the herd immunity. When we talk about herd immunity, it is an essential concept in disease prevention. Actually, when a significant portion of a population becomes immune to a disease, either through infection or vaccination, it reduces the chances of disease transmission, thereby protecting those who are not immune. This is why maintaining high vaccination rates is critical to preventing outbreaks. Like for example, yung sa COVID-19, di ba? So, magkakaroon ng herd immunity. So, parang on a larger scale or on a broader perspective. Now, let's talk about variolation and vaccination. So, variolation developed, no, I mean, Edward Jenner developed modern vaccination using cowpox, led to the development of vaccines for various diseases. So, si Edward Jenner pala yung nag-start, no? So, variolation, early method using smallpox calves to induce immunity. Before modern vaccines, practice called, this is a practice actually, no, variolation was used where individuals actually were deliberately exposed to smallpox calves or pustules to develop immunity. Ano yung sabi ko kanina, meron tayong two types of classification of adaptive immunity. But talks about again, adaptive immunity, our immune system can activate this, can activate immunity naturally or artificially. So, yun kanina is ginawa nilang experiment yung when a person daw or individual is exposed to smallpox, they can develop immunity naturally. However, this method carried risks, including severe illnesses and further transmission of the disease. Yes, it's the beginning of vaccines, it's the beginning of the modern vaccines. However, it also has a lot of critical consequences in the population. This breakthrough came in the 18th century when Edward Jenner observed that milkmaids exposed to cowpox did not contract smallpox. He hypothesized that exposure to a milder virus could protect against a more severe one. Jenner tested this theory by inoculating a young boy with material from a cowpox lesion and later exposing him to smallpox. And what do you expect? The boy did not develop the disease, marking the beginning of a modern vaccination. Ang tawag nga nung ano ang tawag na immunity na yon? It's when it once was transferred from another, it's passive immunity. So we have classes of vaccines where half, I mean, we're nearly done with the topic. So types of vaccine, we'll be talking about several types of vaccine, no, each designed for specific pathogens and immune responses. We have one, the live and attenuated vaccines or weakened pathogens. These contain weakened forms of pathogen. They provide a strong, long-lasting immunity but may not be suitable for immunocompromised individuals. Examples include MMR for measles or mumps or rubella as well, and varicella vaccines. So these are live attenuated vaccines. We have the second one, which is the inactivated vaccines. It killed pathogens. This contain pathogens that, again, not killed or inactivated. They are safer than live vaccines actually, but often require booster shots. Examples include the polio and hepatitis A vaccines. And then yung COVID-19 din. Kasi kailangan natin ng booster shot. I think nakapag-inject tayo ng tatlo and then meron tayong another 3 booster shots, di ba? So, the third one is subunit vaccines. Instead of using the whole pathogen, these vaccines actually use only key pathogens, reducing the risk of side effects. For example, include the HPV and the whooping cough vaccines. We have the fourth one, which is the toxoid vaccines, inactivated toxins. This targets bacterial toxins rather than the bacteria itself. Examples include diphtheria and tetanus vaccines. We have the last one, which is the conjugate vaccines. These are designed for pathogens with protective polysaccharide capsules that evade the immune system. So it's a combined antigens for stronger response. By combining a protein with the polysaccharide, this vaccines enhances immune response, especially in young children. Examples include the HIV, oh no, not the HIV, the Hib and the pneumococcal vaccines. So as you can see, vaccines play a pivotal role in preventing infectious diseases and pandemic and improving public health as well. They do not only protect individuals but also contribute to herd immunity. Herd immunity. Yung herd immunity again, broader and mas malaki. So ibig sabihin, a group of population, a bigger group of population would have an immunity to that specific disease. No? So it contributes to reducing the spread of illnesses in communities and as well as eliminating overall the diseases. Despite some misconceptions and hesitancy, scientific evidence overwhelmingly supports the safety and effectiveness of vaccines. As we continue to develop new vaccines, they remain a powerful tool in the fight against infectious diseases. Even though na yung iba is nagsasabi na when they got a shot of vaccine, mag-mutate lang yung virus or the disease and then mas malala. Diba? Like for example, the antibiotic, diba? Kailangan hindi natin masobrahan mag-inom ng antibiotic. Just like for example sa vaccine. That's why everyone are also hesitant during the COVID-19. Diba meron tayong malaking crisis of pandemic at that time and then yung iba hindi nagpapavaccine kasi natatakot na baka daw yung vaccine is Illuminati or yung vaccine is nakakamatay. And we have issues here in the Philippines kasi about vaccines. Like for example, yung time ni Noy, meron kasing vaccine na binigay para hindi daw magkaroon ng dengue. Pero ayun, yung tinatawag natin dengue vaccine, di ba? Pero maraming namatay. So maraming reluctant when it comes to vaccines. That's why I still encourage everyone to stay informed and support vaccination efforts to ensure a healthier future for all. And I hope that our government will have a free vaccine for all. Like for example, a free vaccine for anti-rabies or free vaccine for pneumonia. Actually, yun daw, meron naman. Kaso, unlimited lang siya. Unlimited. Limited lang siya. So, I hope that the government will prioritize our health. So, ayun, thank you everyone for listening. So, that's just my topic, and it's just so easy. It's just all about the lymphocytes and the vaccines, and it's so easy to understand. And I hope that you also understand it. And bye bye. Thank you for listening.